Single arm overhead pressing is one of the best exercises you can do for building upper body strength, as well as for improving shoulder mobility. Plus, we love single arm exercises, or what are called unilateral exercises, because they help develop cross body stabilization. Now, cross body stabilization is probably one of these terms you've never heard of, but that you use every day. You use it when you're walking, you use it when you're running, you use it when you reach for something up on a shelf to get down for cooking your favorite meal. The point is, cross-body stabilization is something that happens all the time without your thinking about it, and single arm overhead pressing is a great exercise, or any single arm or single leg exercise for that matter is great for building and developing cross-body stabilization. Hi, Henry Beyer here with Strong for Life. In this video, you'll be learning 3 tips on how to improve your kettlebell pressing grip. Plus, if you stay to the end, I'll share with you a pro tip on how to increase the weight you can lift with your single arm kettlebell press. So let's get to those tips. I'll first show them to you without a kettlebell, and then I'll demonstrate them with a kettlebell. So the first tip is keeping your wrist straight, like this. When you hold a dumbbell or a barbell in your hand for pressing overhead, you actually have a cupped wrist like this, because the handle of the dumbbell or the bar of the barbell sits in the palm of your hand like so. And that's okay, because the weight goes directly through the bar down through your wrist and into your arm like that. With the kettlebell, that's not the case, because the kettlebell has an offset center of gravity. When you're holding a kettlebell in your hand, you have the handle in your hand and the bell is out here like this. If you cock your wrist like that, the weight of the bell pulls on your hand like this and puts a lot of stress on the inside of your wrist in these tendons here, and you can get injured from doing it too much like that. So when gripping a kettlebell, you want to have this straight wrist. So that's tip number 1, a straight wrist when lifting with a kettlebell. The second tip involves how the kettlebell handle sits in the palm of your hand. With a barbell or a dumbbell, again, generally the handle or the bar of the barbell sits sort of flat in your hand. It's sort of level in your hand like this. With a with a kettlebell, the handle actually runs at a diagonal across your hand from this meaty V part of your finger, of your hand, between your thumb and your index finger, and then running down to this meaty part of your palm down here. That's how the handle sits. The kettlebell handle sits in your hand for doing overhead presses, for doing the Turkish get-up, and even for the top of the kettlebell snatch. So that's the third tip. The handle of the kettlebell sits in your palm at an angle instead of level. The third tip is what you do with this knuckle of your working hand that's on your thumb right here. This is a very important knuckle. So as you press up, you want to point this knuckle up here to the sky or to the ceiling. And the reason for that is by pointing that knuckle up, you actually activate your triceps, and that helps keep your elbow locked out straight. And this is important, or that's important, because in the get-up, the top of the snatch, and the top of the press, you want this elbow to be locked out. So by cocking the wrist and pointing that thumb to that thumb knuckle to the ceiling, you are activating the tricep, which helps keep your elbow locked out. So that's the third tip. The knuckle on the thumb of the working hand needs to point towards the ceiling or to the sky in this case. Now let's see what that looks like with a kettlebell. Here I am with the kettlebell in what's known as the racked position. This is the position where you hold the kettlebell up close to your chest. And you'll notice that my wrist is straight. Of course, the handle is blocking the view a little bit, but you can get the picture that my wrist is straight. Now, if my wrist were cupped like this, you can see how the weight of the kettlebell is not going straight through my wrist. It's pulling down on my fingers, and it's adding a lot of tension, a lot of stress to the inside of my wrist here, and we don't want that. So a straight wrist is what you want when you're pressing the kettlebell, when you're doing Turkish get-ups, and when you're snatching at the top of the snatch. So that was tip number one. Tip number two is the position of the handle in your palm. Instead of the handle being running flat across your palm like that, you want the handle to run at this diagonal, where this curve in the handle, which is sometimes called the horn, sits in the meaty portion between your thumb and your index finger, and then the handle runs at a diagonal down to this meaty portion of your palm down here. And that is how you want to hold the kettlebell in your hand for the press, for the Turkish get-up, and when you're in the top of the snatch. It's starting to rain. We got to get this over with. That's the second tip. The third tip was about this knuckle on the thumb of the working hand. As you lift it up, press the kettlebell up, you want to point that knuckle to the sky, which is now gray and ready to rain, because it helps activate this tricep, which keeps the elbow locked out, which is important for the press, for the snatch, and for the Turkish get-up. So those are the three tips on how to improve your kettlebell pressing grip. Now, I promised you that I would share with you a tip, a pro tip on how to increase the weight you can lift with your pressing. And that tip is crushing the handle of the kettlebell with your grip, squeezing the handle as hard as you can. And what that does is it pulls in, it activates the muscles of the arm, the bicep, the shoulder, the chest, and the lat. It's called irradiation. And it's a very important skill to have because it will help you lift more weight. When you squeeze really hard, it activates all those muscles, and they all contribute to the pressing of the weight. So let's do a quick exercise here before I get totally rained on that will demonstrate what I'm talking about. So shake out your arms and just get nice and loose. Now just take a moment just to see, what your arm feels like in terms of relaxation and tension right now. Should feel pretty relaxed. Now squeeze your hand as hard as you can. Make a fist and see what happens. You should feel like your bicep gets tighter, your shoulder gets tighter, you feel some tension in your chest and in your lat. That is the irradiation, and when you do that, that tightness in those muscles will help you lift more weight. So the next time you press, be sure to do that. And you can do that with even light weights. It doesn't have to be a heavy weight. Practice it with light weights, so when you use it on a heavy weight, you'll do it automatically. Well, that pretty much does it for how to improve your kettlebell pressing grip. If you liked the video, please be sure to hit the like button. It really does help. And subscribe to the channel so you won't miss future videos. Again, my name is Henry Beyer with Strong for Life. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll be sure to respond to them.